as a signal that maybe there's room for an interest group. So I'll just give a quick update. We heard back from Shahar on yesterday that the Common Sense team has made good progress. They've changed the underlying architecture a bit in a way that's going to be really good, that will make it much more flexible. So the way that the architecture worked before was that we had a bot that would basically extract the emoji responses from posts within Discord and then aggregate them into a database. And then there was this kind of custom UI made from this development framework called Django. And so we were interacting with that, and then the idea would be then take that and kind of export it to Airtables, Airtable databases. So what they've moved to is basically just kind of obviating the need for that Django UI, and they're just moving it straight into an Airtable. What that's going to do is give us a lot. First of all, it'll be a lot cleaner because the UI that they had before was a little bit clunky. And so what this will allow us to do is just run all kinds of our own filters just using the power of Airtable to be able to sort and filter and do all kinds of stuff. So this is really good. The other thing that they're going to be doing is making it pretty easy to tag a particular channel within the Discord server, so that we know that we can recognize posts that are coming from a particular channel. So right now, the only thing we have set up is it's really just the knowledge sharing forum channel that is set up to be able to receive the curation signals. But with this new change that they've got coming, we'll be able to add other channels if we want to, right? So, I've been talking with Shebnam about doing something for ethics, token engineering ethics. So this would allow her to just basically either just keep it in a regular channel and just be able to pull posts that get a lot of engagement into their own version of this database, filtered just for them. And interest groups could do the same thing, right? So if Libby wanted to set up like a governance working interest group, she could do that pretty easily and be able to curate. The other thing that's interesting is that this new design will also allow us to take in data from other servers. So if the Token Engineering Academy decided that they want to be able to adopt this, they could do that. And then we could have a unified backend, or we could have just views that are just unique to their server or our server. So all of a sudden, this opens up a lot of the possibilities that we were hoping to be able to have in several months from now. We could have in several weeks from now, pretty soon. So so that opens up a whole bunch of possibilities. So that's kind of where things are with that. In terms of timing, they're hoping to get the next release that has this stuff in it by the end of next week, so that we can begin real testing on it, doing some real stress testing, and which we haven't really been able to do so far. So I would say that they're a couple weeks behind, but in some ways they're now ahead because the thing that we wanted them to do later, they're doing now. So we talked on Wednesday as a group, and what we decided is that in early November is when we will start to. So Acid's going to be working with us to build some tweet threads so that we can start to promote this. And I think that the first focus will be trying to kind of appeal to people who are interested in doing curation and kind of want to understand that aspect of what we're doing, kind of like maybe the geek factor of like being able to experiment with the TEC in a new service, and we would frame it as like a beta launch. But then over time, like over the next few weeks, I think that's when we get into the opportunity to actually maybe launch some verticals, like launch some like specific outreach around particular categories, which is kind of getting close to what the interest group thing would be. So anyway, sorry, that's a lot of background, but I think it's kind of important background.
Thank you for sharing that. I dropped off there for a second, so I don't know if you can hear me. I just want to confirm that.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So the interest groups in particular. So the first idea that, so just to clarify it one more time, make sure I didn't miss anything, is that we want to have people who are more interested in the actual curation process first to kind of test the system out before we launch into the verticals and the actually specific interest groups that we have. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, this is just a working hypothesis, but the first wave of tweets, what we were thinking is that it's kind of more focused on like, hey, look at this cool new feature or service that the TC is launching, and so we kind of like promote like the use of forums, because I don't know how many servers are using the forum feature very actively right now.
Yep.
So promote that and promote the service itself, like, because it's a cool idea, right? So we basically kind of like use that first week or so to kind of like talk about what we're doing and the vision and all that kind of stuff, and then in subsequent weeks we would then start to target particular areas. And one of the ones I think actually that we could get a lot of traction on is DSOC, like decentralized society, because a lot of the common sense team themselves are really interested in this, and they're tracking stuff already, and they've agreed to start shifting some of that curation over to the service. So I think that's and there's just, it's like a hot topic, soulbound tokens and DIDs and all that stuff is like, that's pretty hot right now. So I think we could actually probably get some traction on that front.
Yeah. So when it comes to like the verticals and these like subtopics, one of the thoughts that I was having, like in terms of how to make this as effective as possible, would be to kind of highlight different, there's certain individuals, especially within the industry, that are more prominent than others and on certain aspects. And so you have people that like I follow on Twitter, for example, that are very into policy and regulations. And I think having those individuals, contacting them, having kind of this roundtable approach rather than this just kind of general interest, where we just have a call that, maybe a little bit, who knows how it'll turn out, but to rather have like, the equivalent of Twitter Spaces within the TEC. And I guess my big question is, if we do decide like to go this interest group route with these verticals, do we want to have the professionalism and have like the top minds and try to kind of gather them to have these type of roundtables rather than just have a group of people who are talking about it, almost haphazardly? And so, and then the other thing is, do we want to have these interest groups conversations token gated? That is my other question.
Yeah. So I think that my question right now, this kind of gets to some of the bigger questions that the TEC is facing right now. But one of the things that's weighing pretty heavily on me right now is, I mentioned this in the last call, but Rex has been going through some of the engagement data on our Discord server, and it's a little bit bleak. And you can see it, like if you look Just like scroll through the channels, like there are a few new people who are showing up, but not many. And so it's going to be, it's getting the curation service to bear that weight of like attracting people again. It's kind of a heavy burden. So this is one of the things that's just kind of like trying to figure out how we think about this and the relationship with the academy. Like, there are signals that are being sent right now to us every day, that the academy is like getting a lot of attention, deservedly so. Like they've been doing some great work, and they've been building up to that great work for many, many months now, or more than a year. So it's paying off, and they're getting a lot of engagement right now. And so there's one strategy with the curation service, which is like, let's use it to try to re-engage and rebuild the community here in the TEC, like a broad-based community, the Shelling Point. And there's another strategy, which is like, let's take the Shelling Point to where the activity already is. Like you work with these existing communities that are already having, like, their engagement didn't drop off. So, and there's a hybrid strategy, which is like we do both, right? And so my sense is right now, no matter what, we need to test this service, and we need engagement in order to do that. So I think that that means that we need to build some real engagement, pick a couple categories. And I think to answer your question, like you're going to the longer term question of like, can we get some more professional folks who really know what they're talking about and actually turn this into some events? I guess my question, the reason I went down that whole thread is, I don't know, like, if they would come here based on the amount of engagement that we actually have right now. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I mean, I think you're probably right. I think that's something that we'd have to earn, basically. And I think there's baby steps before that. But I do think, we have that problem where it's like, how do we bring people in? And then how do we sustain, like, keep them here and engaging with the service, actually? And so I think that, if we can get professionals to come through and say, hey, just use our space to host this conversation around this topic for the sake of token engineering, maybe get them value aligned behind what we're trying to do at the project, I think it's worth a shot. Like, I really don't think that we should, settle, like if we can shoot our shot with the, big folks and big projects, like I think we should do it. I don't want to just take baby steps and hopefully we get there. Like I want to attempt over and over again, even if it means kind of like, hey, let's create a list of individuals who would be nice to be on a panel and see how many people we can attract with that type of discussion, and then see how we can keep those individuals here to really work on that subtopic. But yeah, I agree that we need to make sure the first foundation thing is to make sure that we can get this curation service consistent and working properly, and easier to use. But yeah, outside of that, I really do think we should, shoot our shot and see if we can gather, like, really make this a Shelling Point for not only token engineering, but for a lot of topics that will kind of enhance the product that we're creating with this curation service. Yeah, I don't know. Bear?
Yeah, I have a couple of thoughts, because I've also been thinking about this idea of the interest groups. First, I think it's really interesting what you were mentioning, Nate, about trying to bring professionals, and the way I'm thinking about it is that I mean, I think we could have both things, right? We could have like these more professional panels and like round tables where an expert comes here and explains a specific topic, and there's a conversation around that. And then we could also have like more casual conversations, right? More conversation groups, or this idea of the interest groups happening between people that just share an interest and they just want to gather and talk about that. And in that regard, I've been trying to think about. If we think about it, I think that the only group, or probably the most active group right now in the TEC, is actually the Omega working group. I think if you see their calls every week, they're still like meeting, they're discussing stuff, they are talking about stuff. Their chat is also really active.
They are the definition of an interest group for sure.
Exactly. So in a way, I feel that we already, in a way, have an interest group happening right there, and it has a lot of traction and a lot of energy. So maybe it might be good to find a way in which we can support them, and maybe if they take this into like a next step, maybe with some communication efforts to try to bring more and new people into this interest group, and try to, yeah, I think it would be a really good opportunity to try and to work with them in this regard. I also see that they have like three different sessions happening throughout the week talking about different topics. So if ethics is their big thing, maybe we could call it that way, or I don't know. It would be good to work this through with them. But I think that's something really good. Good idea to explore, and that could happen right now, right? I don't think we would need confirmation that, let's say, from the curation service, that this is something that people is interested, because it's evident that it is. So that's on one side. Then on the other side, I've also been thinking about this situation with the academy, and more on how can we support the efforts, and how can we, in a way, partner and help each other. And I've been just going through their Discord server, and I think it's really neat. I think it's really clear, because it's pretty basic, pretty easy to understand. Like, you have all these study groups, right? Where people from different countries, or time zones, or whatever, or languages, they meet, and they talk about the study, right? About the course, about the questions they have. They have this group around the specific course that the academy is providing. But an idea that came to my mind is that I was going through, and I have the impression, or like the feeling, that there's also space there to explore, because I feel that I was also in a call of one of the study groups yesterday. It feels like there are also certain topics within the course that they have, that people would like to continue talking about, and just not specifically continue just with the course structure. It feels like they would like to have some time where they can just like really focus into a specific topic about the course, but just like explore it in a more casual way. So I feel that maybe, like, instead of having study groups, we could just provide this kind of space for that kind of people that it's already in their server, to come here and to continue the conversation, to transfer the conversation from this academic setting into a more casual setting, where people can just gather and talk about whatever they want to. Yesterday I was in one of the study group calls, and it was really interesting, because one of them was, they were in one of the modules, and he was like asking, I feel that in this module they are not talking enough about bonding curves. He wanted to talk more about bonding curves, and then after that comment, more people started like talking about it, and like raising questions and trying to have a conversation about it. And then it was really easy to see how the conversation, it was kind of like deviating from the actual course to this specific topic about bonding curves, right? So maybe we could bring that conversation into the TC. This could kind of also become some type of service or support that we could offer to the academy, and that could be really interesting for them to also have, right, and to work with us. So yeah, I don't know what you guys think. These were some of the ideas that I had.
I think that's awesome. I was also in a study group a couple days back and saw the same thing. Like there's, they were all working on one module, and half the group was probably really focused on just trying to figure out how to answer the questions for the exam at the end of the module, and then there were other ones that were really interested in diving a little bit deeper into the topics that the module presented, and they just they didn't have time, so they had to follow the format of the study group and whoever, the whims of whoever was hosting it. And so that to me is a little bit of a weakness in terms of the study groups that we could definitely fill the gap in for that, because, I think a big part of that is really understanding the format of how these interest groups will operate. If we want to incorporate the curation service, for example, it would be interesting to say, hey, let's, the interest group meeting would be something like, first 10 minutes, everybody shares some article or some piece of information or something interesting regarding that specific topic. And then they just go through and discuss it. What was interesting about it? What would they learn from it? What are some potential developments that could, or innovations that could be had in that particular realm? But I do think the format is really important to get down, and it be uniform across all the interest groups. So I think there's some things to think about in terms of how we actually implement these interest groups, and I really kind of would like to start seeing that. Maybe we can use Omega as a kind of a trial and error system, and I'm not sure if Sebnem and they're so diffuse, like that entire group, because there's some people who meet strictly for like the ethics things, and some do like the participatory research and the concilians library, and so it's such a I can't keep up with them, so I'm not really sure who to talk to about it. Maybe Sebnem's good, but some other people might be interested as well. So yeah.
So I had a really good conversation with Sebnem about this, and Merck too. So it was the two of them, and yeah, they're both very enthusiastic about it. And I at the time I told them it's not something we could get to. Hey Rex, we're just talking about curation service and kind of what's happening with that, and then interest groups. And so we were talking about potentially partnering with the Omega Group as like a first interest group to roll this out in. And I was just saying that Sebnem, so we had this conversation, and at the time, I didn't think that we would have this functionality to be able to roll it out to other channels as soon as we do. But I think we will have it in the next 2 weeks, hopefully. So I think she's interested. Now, here's the complexity is that they have this vision for the Conciliance library, which is really big. It's like a very big vision that's like, it's not limited to ethics. So it's like all curation. It's like looking at all of the places in the token engineering flower, AI, governance, ethics, like everything, right? And like how those topics touch each other. And I was like, that's going to be hard. That would be the whole curation service, like not only for here, but like for all of the other servers, right? And so I was like, maybe there's a way if we succeed in rolling this out to many different servers, that you can help play a role in like building a nice UI for it or something like that. And so they're thinking about that. But the thing that I asked her point blank is, well, but would you be interested in taking a more narrow look at just ethics and doing some curation around that? And she said, yeah, I think so. She had to think about it a little bit. And so I think she's kind of thinking about what that might look like But I think they have a lot of different things going on. I think, Nate, if you wanted to take the lead in, and Bear, I don't know how interested you are in this yourself, but certainly, Nate, if you reached out to her and said hey, I'm just following up from Gideon had this conversation with you, and it looks like we might have this functionality a little earlier. Do you want to experiment?
Yeah, I'd be totally down to do that, and I do think that as we start to with these conversations start to get a clear picture of next steps and next movements forward, it'd be really interesting to kind of have each of us maybe kind of look at an area that we can own. I don't know, Bear, if you're interested in the whole maybe once everything's cleared up with the TEA, seeing about engaging with study groups and offering those types of services as well. But I would really like to reach out to Sebnum and see if we can get kind of a subgroup of the Omega working group to actually participate in this. So yeah, I'd be down to own that. But yeah, I think if we can kind of build out a little mini roadmap for this initiative, for the initialization of the interest groups, I think it'd be really beneficial.
I mean, what I would say, Nate, is that in this case, it's as Bear is saying, it's already there. So, and a month or so ago, month and a half, 2 weeks, something like that, I talked to Shebnam about this, and she was like, I happened to mention the idea of an interest group versus a working group, and she was like, oh, I really like that idea. Because for her, that means less pressure to try to monetize and sustainable, have a budget. It's you can just basically have Reddit,
Yep.
It's Reddit, and but with better curation. So, and live conversations. So anyway, I think she's definitely open, and I think maybe what we could do is just treat it as a beta, and just have a very rough plan for we want to test this out for the next 3 months and see how well it goes, and then learn from that, and then incorporate it.
That sounds great. In terms of promotion and branding, is there something we can do to work with maybe Acid Laser to actually, once we have a couple of rounds under a belt with the interest group, can we see how we can promote it and see if we can get some outside engagement?
Yeah, I mean, I feel this is how we start to build Twitter engagement back up, right? Is you focus on, you focus on the curation service, the fact that we've got a bunch of people who are curating really good content around this topic, and then there's good conversations that are happening, and then you tweet it out and you recognize the people in the field, the people who shared the content, name them, and you get them to forward it and stuff, and it, and then you mention the people we're talking about, the works that we're talking about, and you get the same thing, and hopefully maybe at some point they come and they join the call.
Yep.
I feel in ethics, it would probably be pretty easy because those are people who probably don't get a lot of attention anyways, it's not it's not like getting Vitalik or something, it's these are people who are probably looking for people to pay attention to what they're saying.
And in terms of using the curation service, the one thing that I think that we're probably going to need with these interest groups is I won't say a tutorial, but kind of people who can walk, who are whoever's leading the interest groups should probably be trained in how to use the curation service. And I'm not sure if we can start on building informational infrastructure for things like that, but I think it'd probably be really beneficial.
Yeah, I would say that we could probably do some lightweight stuff on that. It's my guess is that it's going to be changing a lot over the next few. as we iterate on it. So, you know, I my general view on stuff like this is like when it's a lot of people who need to be trained, then do documentation and spend the time to do good documentation. But if it's just like one or two people, then just train. You know, like
Yeah. Okay.
So,
So,
but I don't know. Yeah.
sorry, yeah, just in regards with the curation service, I have like this question on how would it work with the interest groups. Let's say Omega, and how would it look like in the actual server? Are we thinking on like creating like another forum that would be called, I don't know, like Omega Ethics Sharing, or I don't know, whatever the name it is, and then having that as a separate channel to the knowledge sharing that we actually currently have, or how would that look like? Like, I'm trying to think about like what's the package for the interest group. Does that mean like a forum channel with a curation service set up there, and also like a voice channel where they can meet? Is that how the package would look like?
It's a good question. I mean, that's kind of what I've been assuming. What I've been assuming is that in the next phase of the TC, when we start to simplify the working groups, and you know that kind of gets buried, like our inner organs of how we work and all that kind of stuff. Like, you know, we've got a smaller crew. We're not trying to actively like recruit all kinds of people to be contributors. We're just trying to consolidate that, so like that can go down lower. And you know, so the working groups is not like this featured thing that's like at the very top, but that, you know, you'd have like the community section as it is right now, and then you'd have, you know, within that would be the main forum for knowledge sharing, and then you go down, there might be, you know, right now it says working group text, but like maybe it would be interest groups, and to start it might just be this one, right? Ethics, token engineering ethics. And yeah, what I was envisioning is basically a, you know, chat, like general conversation chat, an audio channel, and then a forum. That's what I was thinking. It's pretty simple.
I was also going to ask, do you think we should, and with the changes that are going to happen with the Discord for this type of structure, should I make some changes to the actual discourse forum to mimic that?
Well, so I think the thing is that we still have some work to do in terms of this whole working group thing. Like, this is like, I've never run into anything more complex than DC. I have to say, like, I've been in lots of jobs. This is like the most complicated thing I've ever dealt with. Yeah, like it feels like we've got to navigate this whole relationship with the academy, and like figuring that out. So it's like we're very clear about like who's doing what kinds of stuff, and how we relate to each other. It's gonna be very important. And then simultaneously we've got to like figure out how to like consolidate our operations so that we're just, you know, radically simplifying what we're doing. And so these things are happening simultaneously. Like, we can't wait to do that for the academy relationship to be clearer. So we kind of have to like move simultaneously these tracks. And so what my sense is that like the kind of like changing discourse and changing Discord, like I think we'll get to that, but I think we've got to make these decisions first and get the shift. So
so that's the big thing that I'm waiting on clarity with, because I want to. I'm kind of just working on draft for a post that explains the transition from having multiple working groups to kind of a core unit with interest groups. but when to present that to the community is, I think, timing is important. So if you know when we're ready, then let me know.
So Nate, here's what I would say about that is like that's something that I think we should work on pretty closely. I mean,
Okay.
I mentioned because like I just think
just whatever we do, we're gonna have to present it to the community at the end of the day. So it's like one of those things where I'm like, let's make sure we have our ducks in a row.
Yeah, I just think it's it's probably going to take the form of like two things, probably like a cultural thing, and then there'll probably have to be a proposal, right? That's like funding proposal to fund this group and actually try to like bring back some of the funding from various working groups.
Yeah.
So figuring all that out, like, I think, how we structure the proposal and stuff like that would be great to get your help on. But like one of the things I'm just trying to push on multiple fronts at the same time, and like I think we're getting closer, but
yeah, I just wrote out the kind of the working group and core unit interest group initiative part, so it can be part of a much larger conversation.
Yeah.
So whenever you need that, let me know.
Okay. Yeah. I think. Yeah. I mean, one thing. One thing that would be interesting to get the three of your candid feedback on. And this is just me kind of like spitballing here, or just kind of like throwing out an idea, but there are kind of like two fundamental visions, like two fundamental visions for the TEC's future. And there's probably some hybrid of the two of these, but and one of them, it looks like we're rebuilding engagement, right? We're using the interest groups and using the curation service, and we're trying to basically turn things around, right? Drive more engagement, more new people showing up, simpler roles, and kind of turnaround thing with that. I call that like odd base again, like we had originally. So that's one vision. The other vision is where it's like, well, we instead focus more on being like running a common pool, and working with partners to fund services that they can use in their communities where that engagement is already thriving. So like the Academy and Tokenomics DAO and others, DeFi Safety and a bunch of other folks, right, who have pretty active servers already. They've done a lot of work to build that up, like the Smart Contract Research Forum, and trying to basically work with these entities, many of whom have not tokenized yet, to use some of these services like Praise and Curation service, and denominate them in the TEC, right? And give them ownership, right? So when they are contributing to engagement around those services, it's building demand for the TEC. And it's also building like shared knowledge for the whole commons, right? They own, like everybody shares that, so it's figuring out what those resources are that are held in commons. But that strategy is like what I would describe more as like a B2B, like business to business type relationship versus like consumer, right? We started off with this idea that we were a huge community, and then we kind of lost our way and we started losing because for various reasons, right? So the question is, do we try to reset that build another B2C strategy? It's like trying to build a big audience again, build a big community again? Or do we say, actually, what we really are trying to do now is just focus on partnerships? Really use our token to build like an economic selling point rather than a Discord selling point. Does that make sense, the difference between these two?
Yeah, I see the difference between the two, but like I do think that both of them are equally important. I think that the interest group and the curation service is kind of like the first self-created utility for the TEC token that we can have to really kind of generate buzz around it and maybe incorporate it within other communities and other partners. But like you said, at the end of the day, the entire point of the TEC is the economy. We have to get this economy working. We have to have that jump start. If we can start generating funds for the common pool and start funding projects that incorporate the TEC token as a gesture, saying, hey, you don't need to launch your own token, just use ours. We'll continuously fund you as long as you're progressing our mission. We become the economy for that token engineering project and any other ones that wish to further public goods within the TE space. I think that is the core function of why we're here, not so much for the internal operations and community. Like, we need to make this work. I do think the initiative with the curation service is really important, though, in order to jumpstart that. So those are my thoughts. And I'll pass it on to whoever else.
Yeah, I agree in that. I think that kind of building up a point to the TEC that does make sense. Otherwise, we'd be only playing a net negative game for the TEC. But of course, it's a positive for the whole economy. But it'd be net negative for the TEC rather than a neutral game, if that makes sense. So there needs to be some basis to the TEC under which we can actually say we're useful and we're good people, extending the breadth of token engineering, not just a common pool which gives out money, because the minute that common pool depletes, people leave, as has happened, and the community would just leave us too. So there needs to be some sustainability point to us as well. Yeah.
Hey, Griff, welcome.
GM.
Yeah, for me, I think it would be also like the two options. I think if we want to become an economy, I think partnerships they have to be there. Those will be like some of the most important aspect of the TEC. But at the same time, I think it's important to honor and to follow like the mission and the original vision of the TEC, because I feel that at the end that's what brings us here, like to all the contributors, and also thinking on the stakeholders. I feel that the reason they have the token is because they believe in that vision and mission. So trying to follow that and to make it happen, I think that should be also a really big part of the responsibility that we have, and to deliver on that. I'll pass it back.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. So Marathon Mind, I don't know if you caught the beginning of that, and Griff, basically, I was just kind of like sharing some of the questions that we're thinking about right now, like in terms of, one, it's very important that we figure out a way to partner with the academy, and so that's some of the conversations that are happening. what I was just asking, to take these kind of, yeah.
Sorry, I was not part of most of the call. I was just on another call. I just got back. So Aram told me to be part of the conversation. So that's how I started to get into the call. But then I got another call. And I don't see her here as well. So I had an orientation call with her. And then we spoke about we spoke about writing for TEC. So that's what I do. I write on a freelance basis. So she asked me to part of the call, but then I couldn't make most of the call. I just got back now.
I see. Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Mhm.
Yeah. Welcome.
I think I already spoke to Nate as well. I think I shared some of my works with him, if he remembers. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Indeed.
remember Iram mentioning you. I think you have like a business development background too. Is that right? Like writing and
Yes. Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
Traditional, from a background, it's a business development I have.
Yeah.
And I came into Web3 and I started writing. That's what I do now, right now.
Cool.
Mhm.
Have you spent much time on Twitter?
Yeah, I've been spending time on Twitter. I wrote few threads as well, not much, but I think that's where you get all this information and stuff. While writing, also, Twitter helps a lot to research and navigate around.
Okay. Well, welcome. We can follow up later. I mean, basically, this is the Sampo is the working group that's focused on developing the economic layer of the token engineering commons, and so that's what we've just been talking about, like the various services, like the initial service that we're rolling out, which is a curation service.
Cool.
Yeah. And if you
Okay,
want more
thank you.
background information on that, I can send it to you. There's a quick
Yeah,
document.
sure. You can DM me I think I did go through all the docs.
Okay.
And yeah, I just completely went through. I studied all the different, and then I just got a bit off in past week. I just got back today with I thought I'll get into a call, and then I got into the call.
Okay. Great.
Mhm.
Well, welcome.
Yeah.
Good to have you
Yeah.
here.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think we're probably not going to have time to go into more details right now, but I think the main thing is we're going to be going through some of the transition where we're basically trying to like focus and simplify things, and then how do we do that, and then progress, right? Take the foot off the gas. So I think actually, so the curation service will be, 2 weeks. We'll be rolling that out probably 2 to 2.5 weeks in beta. And I think, doing the test with a team like, around ethics, I feel like it will progress in the face of some of these changes. So it seems like that's a good outcome from. Any other thoughts before we close? Griff, did you have anything you wanted to mention or talk about while you're here?
No, I was just sneaking in before the community call. Thought it'd be fun to see what's going on.
Cool. Actually, in the stewards call, we decided collectively that we're going to cancel the community call today. So Nate and others and maybe me too will be we're looking at potential reformatting the community call. And so we just felt like there wasn't enough energy today. Quite
Nice. Okay, that's cool. Well, I'm glad I found out. I would have been curious what happened.
Sorry, I was like, ooh. Not you yet.
No worries. I'm sorry. There's a important call. Unfortunately, it's conflicting with the steward's call for me now. So I don't know. Yeah. Well, also put into play that I'm happy to be the host. of these calls if you'd like, when they get started back up.
Yeah, we'd love that. I think that'd be awesome. I think we're gonna do a pretty radical change in the format, and we're gonna bring back the spotlight. So
Nice.
yeah. So
Great.
Need
Yeah.
your energy.
Yeah. I mean, it's like basically trying to make it a little bit more celebratory and more focused on the work rather than our work. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
focus it more on the topics and on the stuff that people are interested in hearing about.
Cool. Super cool. Well, yeah, well, keep me in the loop. I guess, where does the talk on this happen? Probably in the Steward's Discord channel?
Yep, for sure.
Okay. Perfect. I'll keep a close watch in there and see what's up.
Cool. Well, thanks for coming by, and thanks everybody for jumping on today. It's a little bit lighter crew today, but it's kind of nice to be able to have a more in-depth conversation. That's good. All right, everybody. Have a good rest of your day.
Yeah, thanks, Gideon. Appreciate you, man.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.
All right.
Anyways.
Bye. See you.